once you have that acceptance, like once you've accepted, then it's like, okay, I accept that's where I am, but I don't want to be that anymore. So I can change it and I can become something different if I choose to be.
This is the Energy Within podcast, all about accessing, nurturing, and building your energy and confidence so that you can design your life the way you want. My name is Carrie Jokala. I am your host. I am a Reiki master, a fitness instructor, a wife, a mom to 2 little boys, and this episode is so good. It is with Melissa Roberg, who is a life and leadership coach, and she works specifically with something called the Energy Leadership Index. She is an Energy Leadership Index master practitioner, which is kind of a mouthful, but it's so cool. She breaks down what that means and how knowing what your index is can help you to start making some more conscious choices about your energy and how you show up, the actions that you take, the reactions that you have when you're interacting with people and situations. And we also talk a little bit about introverts because she specifically likes to work with introverted women. And believe it or not, I am actually an introvert. And if you're thinking that I could not possibly be an introvert, then I'm just going to say you might not know the true definitions of introvert and extrovert. So we talk a little bit about that and what it actually means to be an introvert. It has nothing to do with how you interact with people. And I really hope that you resonate with this one. And there are some great takeaways. One big overall takeaway that we chat about at the end. But I really hope you like this one. If you do, please share it, post it on your social media, and tag me, tag Melissa. Let us know what you liked and what resonated. I can't wait for you to hear this one. You're going to love it. Here we go. Well, Melissa, I am so excited to have you here. I'm really interested to hear more about your topic. So thank you for being here.
It's a pleasure. I'm excited to be here too. Thanks.
Why don't you start off and tell everyone a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. Thank you. So my name's Melissa Roberg and I'm a life and leadership coach. And I help women who want to learn to lead themselves and others better, as well as women that are wanting to transition in their careers or in their life as well into bigger, better things to reach the higher versions of themselves. And I'm a certified professional coach, as well as I'm an Energy Leadership Index Master Practitioner. That's a very long, long sentence, but it basically means that I can administer a very cool assessment called the Energy Leadership Assessment, which I'm sure we'll chat about.
Absolutely, because that was what drew me to you, because we're called the Energy Within. And then I saw your energy leadership, so I want to know more about that. So say the title with that again. What Energy Leadership?
Energy Leadership Index.
Okay.
Master Practitioner.
Gotcha.
Yeah. A long, huge mouthful. It's very, very easy to get tongue-tied.
Yeah. How long have you been doing that for? Because I didn't even know that was a thing.
So about a year.
Okay.
Yes, and it's a assessment that the coaching school that I went through allows their coaches to administer to their clients. Yes,
gotcha.
So you have to go through the IPIC coaching training to be able to do the assessment with people.
So why don't you explain exactly what that index is and what that means?
Well, I'm so glad I'm on a podcast where everyone loves talking about energy, because some people, it might go over their heads a little bit.
Yeah, I also was like, that's a little woo-woo. I don't know what you're talking about, but we're all about it here, so bring it on.
So basically, it's an assessment that measures your level of consciousness and self-awareness.
Okay.
So it asks you a bunch of questions about your beliefs and your thoughts and perceptions about the world and your spirituality, and basically 20 to 30 questions. And then at the end of the assessment, it gives you your percentage on each energy level. And there's 7 energy levels.
Okay.
So the lower levels of energy are very catabolic energy levels, and they're associated with victim mentality and conflict and overwhelm and very stressful. And then the higher levels of energy are associated with more freedom, peace, flow. So it's a very cool assessment, because on the graph it shows you kind of like what your average is and where you're falling and how aware you are of yourself.
Okay. And then where do you go from there once you have that information?
So helping clients to understand the conscious choices that they have available to them and to respond to themselves, and then in life to the people around them and the situations around them. So from there, it's basically helping them to gain more awareness around the thoughts and patterns that they have about themselves and how to live more consciously and to create an energy around you that is more anabolic, that attracts like energy to you instead of like puts out a vibe of like,
sure,
negative vibe around you.
Well, that's, when they say if you're, I guess, essentially thinking positive thoughts or thinking negative thoughts, like whatever you're putting out there is what you're going to get back. That whole kind of law of attraction manifestation thing.
Yeah, totally. So it's kind of similar in that way, because you get to choose, like it's a conscious choice. Like,
right.
Say I'm really, really angry at somebody right now, and that would be conflict. That would be like a lower level, and then you make the conscious choice. Like, okay, this isn't working out right now. I want to achieve something that both of us can win from the situation, and then make a choice of like, okay, I want to steer this conversation in that direction. And it's difficult in the moment when
right.
it's but just to open people's eyes up to that there is that possibility.
Right. Just out of curiosity, just because it reminds me a little bit. So you said the 7 different energy levels and there's 7 main chakras. Does it talk about or deal with the chakras at all? Or is it a completely its own thing?
It's very interesting, because when you look at the charts, the colors are the chakra colors.
Okay.
Right? But it doesn't talk about the chakras.
Okay.
Like but the whole philosophy, there's a lot of NLP and a lot of like Buddhism and these different kinds of things that are part of it. The guy that came up with it. So yeah. To answer your question, yes and no.
Okay.
Yeah.
It just made me think, because like they say, the lower 3 chakras not necessarily are all victim mentality and all that negative stuff, but they're denser, they're more, earth-based, and then you get into the upper chakras, they're more feminine, connected to the divine, all that kind of stuff. So
yes. So the colors are there for sure.
Okay. So is this something, it sounds like something that can be applied in pretty much any aspect, whether it's just wanting to improve your life or if it's something related to your career or something else that you want to improve in. Is that true? Is it something that's kind of applicable in any area?
Yeah, definitely, for sure. Because, you could be in a leadership role, and you're leading other people. So it's an effective tool for you to consciously see the energy you're putting out, when you're putting it out, and how everyone else around you is also acting and reacting. So definitely in work, at personal, in your family environment, to sort of pick up, my partner's going down into like level 1. What can I do to, help or support or whatever? So yeah.
And probably not pointing out like, hey, you're dropping down to level 1 right now.
Yeah, exactly.
I can see some people doing that. And no, it's not me. So
yeah, so it can help in all aspects of life, for sure.
Do you find that people have, on average, a pretty easy time accepting what their index results are and then moving forward? Or do you have people who are pretty shocked by it and a little stubborn and not willing to really make those changes? What do you tend to see? I'm sure it's all over the place, but what do you tend to see?
Yeah, it is kind of all over the place. But what is interesting is that the stress response, because it measures like what you're like on a good day, like when things are going well,
Sure.
and then it measures how you react to stress. And most people react with like level 1 and 2, which is victim and conflict. So people are quite surprised when they see that, but it's actually it's natural because we're human beings, so we sort of have a lot of the same responses. So people are shocked, but I think it sinks in after a while. And it's kind of like, this is natural. But when the penny drops, is like, I still have a choice on like what I can do with this and how I can grow from this.
So what do you typically start people off with then to start changing that mindset and learning how to catch themselves? What would be kind of the first steps?
The way I like to do it, because I've sort of adapted it to sort of my own methodology, is that, energy is moving throughout your body, like emotions are energy in motion. So like when you're feeling like your heart is beating faster, or you're breathing quicker, or sweaty palms or whatever, like obviously that's your stress reaction in your body. So I like to ask people to start paying more attention to the way that their body is reacting and to feel the feelings. And then once you feel the feelings, to label them. And then from there, that makes making the choice a lot easier. And then there's a bunch of principles as well that I use with it, and that is principles like acceptance and authenticity and connection. And when start to dig into how each one can be applied to your situation, it becomes more of like a higher level where you get to choose, and there's more peace and freedom around life in general, and when we have less expectations.
Yeah, I think that acceptance that you mentioned is a big thing that probably more of us need to start being aware of and trying to step into, because if we're not accepting what's going on, or we just have this reaction of like, well, this is just how I am and this is just how I react, and you don't have that willingness to try to look at it from a different perspective and try to elevate a little bit, well, then yeah, that is the way you are, and you're going to stay stuck there.
Yeah, pretty much.
Tough love.
Yeah, it says like acceptance of who you are now and the way you do things now. And then once you have that acceptance, like once you've accepted, then it's like, okay, I accept that's the way I am, but I don't want to be that anymore. So I can change it, and I can become something different if I choose to be.
Yeah. I love that statement that keeps coming up through a lot of my podcast interviews, just that fact that our brains have the ability to change, that neuroplasticity, and we can alter the way that we think and the way that we react to things, and being aware, like you've been saying, that it's a conscious choice. Even if you don't realize it, once you have that acceptance, then you can become aware that you have the choice in how you want to respond, how you want to act, what kind of energy you want to put out, who you want to be, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, totally. Awareness and acceptance is definitely where it starts. And like, it's interesting that you say, like, I mean, we are almost rewiring those neural pathways, but that's like a muscle that you have to build as well. It's like, it's not something that also just happens like instantly. It's kind of like I have to go to the gym and I have to like practice my conscious choices.
I'm going to say it wrong. I saw a meme the other day with something to the effect of like, I found out that in order to be healthy, you got to eat healthy foods more than once. And that's just not fair.
Yeah. Exactly. Can't we live off cake every day?
Right. That donut I just had probably ain't helping me very much. So in terms of the energy that we put out and being aware of that, I don't really have a properly phrased question to ask you about that, but can you talk about that topic a little bit and how we become aware of that and consciously put out the energy that we want to?
I think it is a choice, first of all. And I think like it can be a different choice in different circumstances. you have a default level. So when you take
Okay.
that assessment, you get a default level, and you can say, okay, my default is level 5, and then it's level 3, and then it's 2, or whatever. And so you have a natural way of being already. So that sort of is, in its own way, it's actually quite enlightening, because you see your default reactions and then work with that, because that in itself is so powerful. So for instance, I might not be answering your question exactly right.
That's okay. It wasn't even really a proper
way.
question. So take it wherever you want.
So like, for instance, like my default level is a level 5 energy, which is a level of like seeking win-wins and opportunities with people and that kind of thing. But the downside of that is also there can be so many ideas that it overwhelms me. And then I go down into like a victim level 1 energy, where I'm like, oh, I don't know what to do. I've got so many ideas, I'm overwhelmed. So we've got these default patterns. But when we see and understand them, then it's easier to decide in this moment, how do I want to show up right now? Like, do I want to show up like with like win-win opportunities? Like, we're like having this podcast interview, and it's like win-win,
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, okay, that's what I'm choosing right now, because it's the intention that I'm putting out, and it's what I want. So yeah, I don't know if I answered your question.
No, you did. No, that was good. I want to ask about the default level. So is the default level something that's set, or can you change what your default is? Or is that just that's just where you are, and then you make the conscious choice from there on a daily basis?
You can totally change them. But it's like, it's who you are. So it's almost changing your being in a way.
Okay.
And that takes time to do. Like, it takes time to work through your thoughts and your patterns and your limiting beliefs and those perceptions you have about yourself and the world. And so that takes time to happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's totally doable to change them, for sure. And once you take the assessment for the first time, and this sort of like these ideas come to you, and you're like, wow, this is so cool, then the next time you take it as well, like you can see the shifts, and you can see like where you're learning and what you're learning, and how you're changing and who you're becoming. So
okay.
It's pretty powerful.
Yeah. I'm sure it takes a lot of work, but yeah, it's good to know that it can be done.
Yeah, for sure.
So when we were first chatting, you just mentioned specifically that you coach introvert women. And I'm also curious about that, because people tend not to believe me, but by nature, I am an introvert. I call myself an extroverted introvert, because I can be extroverted. I do like being in the spotlight. I like being up on stage performing, but then my default setting is I don't mind some alone time. I don't always really want to go out. I'd rather curl up in the corner with a book and a nice comfy blanket and not talk to anybody. So how do you work with introverts? Like, what's your goal with the introverted women that you work with?
So I love everything you just said, because it ties so nicely into the fact that introverts, people think it's you're shy or you're not loud enough or whatever, but it's actually where you get your energy from.
Yes.
And introverts get their energy from being alone and recharging, like in solitude. And I love how that is what you brought up, because I work with introverts on the energy, and how it's amazing how the energy leadership index actually influences the way that I work with my clients as well, because I help them to understand their energy. And we're not just talking about physical energy, we're talking about mental, emotional, spiritual. So understanding their energy, and then what they can do or implement to increase their energy, so that we don't do a talk on stage and then have to like seclude ourselves for like 2 days afterwards because we're trying to recharge, so like just to help them manage that energy better. Yeah.
I saw a meme once that described it perfectly. It was like a picture of a monk like up on a cliff, just like looking out at the sunset, and the caption was something like, I had some social interaction this weekend, I'm good for the next 3 months.
Yeah.
But I like that you mentioned that about the shy thing, because that always bugged me. When I was growing up, people would always label me shy, and I was never shy. I never really identified with that. It's more like, if I don't have something to say, I'm just not going to say anything. It's like,
Exactly.
and maybe there's some psychological thing behind it, but for me, it's just like, if I don't have something that I feel is worth contributing to the conversation, or I don't fully understand what the topic is, I don't have anything that's going to add to the conversation, or I'm worried it might make me look a little stupid if I do say what I'm thinking, I'm just not going to say anything. But you get me going on a topic that I really love, you can't shut me up,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
it's got nothing to do with being shy. It means I just don't have anything to say right now. So
Yeah. And that's perfectly normal. That's natural.
Right.
And I think for introverts as well, like when we contribute, we want to contribute in a valuable way.
Yeah.
Like extroverts talk to think, but introverts think to talk, right?
I like that.
So,
I've never heard it that way, but that makes total sense. Yeah.
yeah. And that's like when we talk, we've actually thought about what we wanted to say. It's already gone through the whole body and system inside of us, and then it comes out,
Mhm.
And that's really cool. It's interesting. And those are like the differences between the introverts and the extroverts. And I love this topic as well.
Well, and that whole aspect too of how we recharge our energy, that it has nothing to do with how well we interact with other people or anything like that. It's what we need to fill our cup again, so that we're ready to go back out and interact again.
Yeah, totally. And if I can quickly mention something. So like when the energy leadership index that we spoke about, like if you think about like when you're low on energy, like, when you've had all the peopling that you can handle, you want to be alone. And then if somebody is poking or prodding you in that moment, you might then respond from a lower level of energy just because you don't have that energy. So it's kind of like, I'm not capable of showing up at my best right now. So another part of the whole thing is when I help clients, there's like 6 influences that actually influence your energy.
Okay.
And then that is sort of influencing the ability for you to choose from a conscious place and to show up on that level of energy. So the influences are things like your environment and your social life and your physical health. And it's interesting because the social and the environmental are two of the main things that impact introverts' energy.
Okay.
Because you're in an environment with so many people and it's noisy and it's loud, and then you just want to get out of there and you want some peace and quiet.
Mm-hmm.
And so that sort of can drain the introvert battery a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I've been in that situation so many times where like I'm fine for a while and then I hit that wall and I'm like, okay, I want to go home. I'm done. Like no more.
And it's amazing like that. It happens almost instantly.
Right.
It's like 1 minute you got energy and the next it's like, boom, no.
Like, nope, it's gone. We're leaving. Do you tend to work with a lot of leaders or women in leadership positions who are introverts then?
Definitely. And like women that are, because when you think about leading other people and when you're in a work environment, it's been a bit different with COVID for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But like when you're in a work environment, there's so many people that need your attention and that you've got like, you want to lead them, but you want to be a good leader.
Yeah.
And so you want to show up like consistently and you want to show up on those high levels of energy. So that means you've got to take care of yourself and you've got to take care of your own energy before you can lead others. So it's super useful to help people in those environments, in those positions, especially introverts.
Yeah. Right away in my head popped in about adding into that also being a mom and having your your attention constantly on somebody else, your energy constantly being drained. And then you got to go show up doing what you do, leading other people. Yeah. And it's like, okay, that's where, for me, I don't know if you're a mom. We haven't talked about it, but are you a mom?
No,
okay.
no, not yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, just for me, like it becomes that much more important to really make sure you find that time to recharge and replenish any way you can. Even if it's just a couple minutes of, just trying to get some solitude.
Yeah, for sure. I can imagine like just closing the door and like getting a little bit of alone time.
But then you still have them banging on the door outside and Mommy, I want to watch a video.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. But yeah, it is. It's so important. And one thing that I noticed with a lot of the people that I work with is like that boundaries are a super important thing, because boundaries are allowing you time for yourself, to say, I need some alone time, or this is my recharge time, or like, and that's something that a lot of my clients struggle with, is also putting those boundaries down.
That is a huge thing. And I keep getting told that that's one of my things, is I need to really focus on my boundaries and be better about that. And I feel like I have in recent years, but there's still work to do.
We all works in progress.
Right. Yeah. So how do you coach someone to start setting those boundaries and sticking to them? Because it's one thing to be like, okay, yeah, this is my boundary, but I think for me, it's the act of sticking to it that is the hard part. You can lay out all the boundaries you want, but if you don't actually commit to them, nothing's going to change. So how do you work people through that?
Yeah. Well, I think first of all, like, it's got to be a boundary that you want, like really want, because if it's something that you're just putting in place for other people, then it's not really going to serve you and you're not going to stick to it. Right. And then it's also developing, this is going to sound very contradictory but it's also developing the skills to actually communicate that boundary with other people. And sometimes you might need to go into a lower level of energy to be firm, to say, this is my boundary, and put that boundary down with people. And then I think like it's a muscle, like we chatted about earlier, like it's might not be perfect every day, but like, you eat a salad for lunch and then you have a cookie later, type of thing, like it's kind of like the balance between life and trying to still stick to your boundaries. It's never going to be perfect. And once you accept that it's maybe never going to be perfect, it's easier to actually do it.
I think sometimes too, for me, what's been useful is enlisting help in putting up a boundary, especially if it's a big boundary that needs to put up, getting people around you who can support you in sticking to that, and even the act of putting it in place in the first place. Or just, I've had instances where I've just been talking to somebody about something that was bugging me, and they're on the outside, so they see it better, and they're like, you need to detach from this and just say no and go from there. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it right now. And then once you do it, though, it's like, okay, phew. But it's that apprehension, like leading up to it. If you let yourself sit in that for too long, that's when it gets trickier, I think. Like, you got to practice just doing it, not thinking about it, not worrying about it, questioning how they're going to react. It doesn't matter. Just do it.
Yeah. Just like you said, just do it, get it out the way, because then your mind and your body is free to sort of just let all that apprehension go.
Right. And I totally understand what you were saying about, you might have to dip into one of those lower energy levels in order to successfully put your foot down and make your voice heard and set that boundary. I always like to point out too, for people, like, people always think that if you're being firm, that it means you're being rude or you're being mean to somebody. It's like, no, being firm, you can be very polite and very civil.
Yes.
But it's not that you're raising your voice or saying anything mean. You're just saying this is how it is and you need to accept it. And that's all there is to it.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. And the way, if you do that with love, like if you set boundaries with love, like, and the person knows and understands they loved and respected and cared for, and, you can come with the lower levels of energy and be firm, but also you can come with love as well.
Right.
And do that at the same time, and then you get to set your boundary, but walk away knowing like we both feel respected, we both feel valued right now. Yeah.
Which that also kind of popped into my head, that idea of being nice to people, and then people worry about, I don't want to be nice because that means I'm going to be a doormat. And that's another statement I've never agreed with. Again, being nice doesn't mean that you're letting people walk all over you either. There's that balance there that you need to find between being a doormat and being nice, because you can be nice and you can be firm at the same time, like we just said.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's interesting when you say that, because it makes me think of one of the levels of energy, and like a level 4 energy is a very caring, loving energy. And that's where you want to help people and you want to show up for people. And it's interesting, and a lot of people's assessments is that when they have that as a predominant energy, then there's a lot of like also resentment and feeling like I don't have a choice behind it. And it's so powerful because you can still care and love, but put those boundaries down to protect yourself from then going into a stressful reaction, because you feel like you're just giving. And then, the boundary is there, it's available for you to not sort of get too stressed out by giving the whole time. And
you take us all the way right back to that initial idea that everything is a choice.
Nice roundabout.
Right? The biggest takeaway, I think, from this is that idea that we have a choice. We always have a choice. You don't have to feel stuck. You don't have to feel like you always have to give, or that you can't set those boundaries, that you can't show up with a higher level of energy if you want to. It's always a choice.
Yeah. And that awareness that you have the choice is like powerful beyond anything. Like, I think some people, as you say, like don't believe they have choices, but we all do. And when we aware and accept that, then like we can really, really start to attract the life we want to have.
Right. Yeah. You don't have to be held back by the fact that you might be an introvert. You can do the things that you need to do and still get it done, and just make sure that you're setting those boundaries and recharge the way you need to recharge.
Totally.
This has been awesome. I've loved every little bit of this. Is there anything that we didn't talk about or didn't touch on that you think would be important to mention?
I think maybe is what's something that's just coming up now is like, when we think about achieving things in life and creating success for ourselves and that kind of thing, like you can only achieve those things if it's something that's really coming from what you want in life. And that comes from having the energy that's within you, that's going through your body and your mind. And
way to tie in the podcast title.
I wasn't
continue. Sorry, go ahead.
No,
I know that was good. I liked it, even if it was unconscious.
And it like that is like just values and who you are and what makes you up, makes you. And when you tap into that, you have so much more energy to do the things you want to do when it's coming from an authentic place that's you, aligned with who you are. And that's something that I just thought like I want to do, sort of finish up on.
No, you know what? That's so important, because I'm going through a little bit of that myself right now. And I find that with a lot of the other people that I've interviewed as well, just that whole idea of living in alignment with not even just your purpose, but what you want to do with your life. When you're in that space, it feels like everything just flows so much easier, and it's easier to do those things like setting those boundaries and showing up in that higher level of energy. When you're fighting against something because you're doing it because you think you have to, or because someone else told you have to, or that's what you're supposed to do, then it gets harder to make those conscious choices, even if you know you have them, because you're in that fight all the time.
Yeah, totally. I love what you just said. I can't add anything better.
Awesome. Well, why don't you let everyone know where they can find you and how they can connect with you?
Sure. So I'm on a few social media channels, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. You can search my name or Propel Yourself Coaching. And then the easiest place to learn more about what I do is at my website, and that's propelyourself.co.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again, Melissa. I have loved every second of this, and I can't wait to release this one.
Awesome. Thank you too. I really enjoyed it, and thanks for letting me be your guest.
Well, how perfect was that to have someone who specifically works with this idea of energy leadership? I just love how everything always ends up tying together. Like, they may not specifically talk about the chakras, but there's 7 energy levels that seem to relate to the chakras. Everything ties together. And I love the focus on introverts because, like I mentioned to her, you may not believe me, but I really am an introvert. But it's important again to note what we were talking about, how introvert doesn't really have anything to do with how you interact socially. It doesn't mean being shy. It means... And same with extrovert. The definitions of both just relate to what you need to recharge. Introverts need that alone time. Extroverts need to be around people to be recharged. And there's nothing wrong with either one. But once you know which one you are and you can work within that energy, it makes recharging and filling your cup and showing up better that much easier. If you're intrigued by this energy leadership index and you would like to find out where you are, you would like to maybe do some coaching with Melissa, please reach out to her. I will have all of her links in the show notes so you can find her easily. And then, of course, I would also love to invite you, as usual, into my Facebook group, The Energy Within. Inside that group, we do group Reiki as often as I'm able to, some live card pulls, and we just talk about all things energy. I try to give you some inspiration, some tips. You are more than welcome to post and ask questions, look for feedback. I would also love to invite you to do a full Reiki session with me, as I am now a Reiki master. So prices have gone up since I've been talking about doing the mini sessions. So you can find all that information on the website. Link again, as usual, in the show notes. So if you want some energetic help to align your energy, to remove those blocks, to get things flowing again, to find clarity, peace, to release something. If you feel like you're holding on to something that needs some help to be released, a Reiki session is perfect for that. And I always include a card pull with that. So that'll give you some extra clarity on what's going on and what needs to be addressed for you to move forward. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it, take a screenshot, do a screen flow, post it to your social media, tag me, tag Melissa, let us know what you liked, and as always, let me know what you need more of. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.